It's as if my life had been laid out by the divine. While divine in specificity, the tiles on which my meandering voyages were traveled were laid by the putrid, plagued hand of pestilence. The road that would wind at times to a dizzying degree had nevertheless been as focused as one pathway can expect to be. As the neglected thoroughfare greedily strips the soul out of every intentional, purposeful stride, I smile. The pain only elevates the satisfaction of reaching the design that has been predestined for the singular, glorious I. The crawling, neighing nag, whose constant resident deep within me, reassures that I, unlike any other, have the graceful gift of the anointed transcendent. Carefully and lovingly placed among the wretched, unclean filth understood to be the masses. The sheep of my own flock to shepherd as I and I alone see fit. The celestial and holy have but one purpose. This animus, an inalienable right, not some paltry gift. The will of my Father manifested as my own. Stay my actions, my voice, my hand, if what I have wrought is a deviation from the mind of the very Maker himself. Let the exuberant thrill of my choice, my action, my voice, my hand, my will, wash over you as if it were a calming wave. A mother's sweet, sad song to reassure you that the night soon will end. That the power and glory is intended to be witnessed by all. So if you will, accompany me along the pathway to the shining light. There is a seat reserved for all, but mine alone allows the tender embrace of the right hand of God. Angelic and demonic sight, one and the same, will cower in fear and reverence of the might of the one true Lord and Savior.
Under blue moon I saw you, so soon you'll take me up in your arms, too late to beg you. I'll cancel it though I know it must be the killing time, unwillingly mine. Fate up against your will, through the thick and thin.
Hello, children and adults and everyone in between, before and after alike.
Aliens, animals. What else is there? I don't think there's anything else that has listening capabilities.
Just flora and fauna, you know?
I mean, I guess, yeah, they can listen. Alright, plants too. Yeah, fuck it.
Plants are people too.
And they are welcome to join the fun with us tonight.
They are welcome to join us for another. Yep, it's still gonna be about crazy shit episode of See No, Hear No, Speak No.
Indeed, the UFOs, the conspiracies, and the moitas.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Chris, I got some super neat news for you.
Oh,
and
Lord.
For our listeners out there in listening land.
Is it going to smell funny this time?
It smells funny every time, Chris.
Oh, okay then.
We, right after the release of episode number 48, got our very first listener email. What?
Episode 48.
48 motherfucking episodes. You know why? Is because neither of us are attractive ladies.
That's true. That does make a difference, and that is a
you
fact
and I
also.
Were attractive ladies, we would be flooded with emails, with wedding proposals, and with dick pics.
Well...
But as of now, we are only flooded with one of those three things.
Which one? We'll leave that up to you kids to ponder.
Yep. You'll never know.
You'll never know, because you'll never ask us, you sons of bitches.
I will say thank you very much to Monique from Edmonton, Alberta, which, oddly enough, is where I spent so much time in Canada myself. I do not know this chick, and as far as I know, we don't know any of the same people, so it's just kind of a weird coincidence that she, who also goes by the name Monk, happened to hit us up and said, just to chime in and say that she enjoyed the show and to keep it up and everything.
Thanks, Monk.
And also is originally from, or is half French Canadian. So we have quite the moral conundrum here because
we got some stuff to talk about, though.
She's obviously a fan. She is obviously someone that enjoys what we do, but she is also obviously at least a little bit French Canadian, and I think we all know. Fuck the French Canadian.
We're struggling
Fuck
with
you,
this.
French Canada.
We really are.
Fuck you, French Canada. Fuck you, French Canada.
Fucking mushy mouth. Fucking.
But we'll let it slide this one time. Just don't let it happen again.
Well, I mean, she can let it happen again. We'll give her the pass. So far, she's the one.
But we appreciate you.
Indeed.
And please. More of the same, everyone. Now that I've had that first rush, man, it's gonna be hard to live without it now.
It's
so
sweet.
Hit us up at snhnsnpod@gmail.com or at see no, hear no, speak no pod@gmail.com and give me the drug that I need to survive the doldrums of not having the drug.
Give him a dose. He needs a dose. Just one fix.
I need the emails, man. I'll suck your dick.
If you guys knew how busy this motherfucker was every day, all day, with just... Goddamn, every time I talk to him, he's saying something new that he's doing that, like, I wouldn't fucking do. or have never done. And
there's so much life happening right now in my life.
This fucking guy.
That it's crazy, and it's of course it's not all this show. I have lots going on, but a lot of my time, especially most of my free time, is focused on bringing you people this show that. We know for sure at least one person out there enjoys.
And actually, so in light of all that, it would really be probably easier for me to read the damn emails and him never to get his drug. But he's greedy. So I always get hand-me-down drugs and fucking sloppy second.
I mean, you do have the information that allows you to access these email accounts. You have this. I'm not. It's not some closely guarded secret.
I am a huge phallus, though. We know this. That is why I do not do these things. If you asked me to, I would do it. But I figure you're so much more attentive that, whenever I get the email pop-ups and shit, I don't even ask you anymore. I'm just like, oh, man.
Yeah, I'm sure by this time you just kind of figure that if it's something that you should know about, that I'll tell you about it, and that's basically what it is. So and so that's all good. That's all good. We will always have time for listener emails, even if you're not a fan. If you hate us, which I don't know why you'd be listening if you hated us. Although it's like, I hate watch some stuff sometimes.
Well, it wouldn't be the internet if people didn't, prove that was a thing. Hate watching and taking the time out of their day and the energy to type hate mail just to piss somebody off or to make somebody feel like shit. Like, it really, that is, the internet has proven just how awful people can be for no good reason at all. But in this case, we'll take it. Fuck you guys.
Yeah,
Bring
indeed.
it.
But we're still. I mean, don't be like, oh well, they got their email, so I don't have to worry about sending that one. I've been writing for
No,
3
dude,
months now.
I'm
No,
struggling.
man. Finish
sometimes.
that email. Send it to
Yeah.
us.
If not for any other
need it.
reason, like for maybe, whatever show suggestions or something, if there's a story you want to hear. Sometimes I am
Absolutely.
struggling over here to come up with an idea, even though there are thousands of good fucking stories out there. I just can't decide. I am the most indecisive motherfucker on the planet. So, yeah, it wouldn't be a bad thing, to
Exactly. I mean, there's enough crazy, weird, wild, scary shit out there to have a lifetime worth of episodes of this show. But we only know so much ourselves and only find out so much ourselves. I'm sure that there are some of you out there that have these stories in your head that, it's this fucking crazy shit that only I've heard about for some reason. And well, give us that. And we'll do the research on it too. And we will do an episode
especially
about it.
if it's a story specifically about a circus disappearing.
Yes, please. If there is a story out there, and technically, just there has to be the chances from there has to have had this thing happen to no, there's no way, because how could there? Because that's crazy. It's got to be on the this has to have happened part of the spectrum, which is, has there ever been a circus to disappear?
We don't know what kind of disappear. Just
did it explode and no one could find anything? Was it like Roanoke, where they were there one winter and then somebody came and then they were gone? We want to know where the disappearing circus went, why, how, and were the elephants
inquiring
well
minds.
treated?
How did you cover up the poop smell? How did that happen?
How did you
Indeed.
cover up the poop, period?
Inquiring minds want to know.
So anyway, that email address again is snhnsnpod@gmail.com and or see no hear no speak no pod@gmail.com. The first one was a delight, and I barely cursed her out and made her feel bad, but them's the dice you rolls.
That's true.
When you talk to us. We are a very loving bunch, while hating every single person, place, and thing on this planet.
Nothing means anything. It's all pointless.
And anything that means nothing is all the point
Exactly.
we need.
Well said, sir. Well said.
Speaking of, this being episode 40 motherfucking 9 of this beautiful, wonderful show that we have here, Chris, is the episode number two of Mr. Albert Fish, the Gray Man, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Moon motherfucking Maniac.
That one really is growing on me.
But before we jump in to today's festivities, give the people a little bit of a recap of maybe what they missed last week if they happen to not listen.
Shit was crazy and gross. Back to you, Jason.
All right, that was probably as good as that's about as good as it gets. It's about as good as it gets.
Hey,
so this
I'm
week,
a man of few words sometimes. Other times, I'm a man of flatulence, or sometimes I consider those words too. It's quite the statement.
I mean, it's a statement, but is a statement necessarily a sentence?
No.
So,
Doesn't have to be. One word can make the full
this
statement.
week, we're going to talk about how this thing called Albert Fish, how he became this thing that we all call Albert Fish. Because that's not just I woke up one day and I was cutting apart little girls to eat them, and promised their parents that I didn't fuck them, even though I totally could have.
Woof.
You know, because
Wow.
you're not just a normal happy-go-lucky leave it to fucking Beeve type character, and then the next day raping multiple children and murdering. It just doesn't. There have to be catalysts. There's got to be the
Man.
first domino that was pushed over for this to happen. So
That was like. Here's my analogy for what just happened. Okay, our intro was like, the barbecue at a child's birthday party. Or like the pizza at a child's birthday party where everybody's happy to see it. And then when we jump into the show, the old man gets naked and hops into the pool, into the fucking kiddie pool. Like, that's what just happened. Like, it was just like, okay, back to the show. Fucking eating kids.
Mhm.
Could have fucked them.
Yep.
Oh well. Didn't happen this time.
It's not only the old man that has had too much to drink that is now naked in the children's pool at a child's
Good
barbecue
God.
birthday party. He has since defecated in the pool and is screaming at and blaming the dog for it.
Oh,
So,
floaties.
Albert motherfucking Fish
What a horrendous
was
piece
born
of shit.
in Washington, D.C. on May 19th, 1870. This motherfucker. He was born to Randall and Ellen Fish. They, as far as I can tell with all of my research, I mean, I'm not 100% on this, but I'm almost positive that they weren't actual fish. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah. I mean, the whole animal brain thing he's got going on is, it leaves it open for question.
Well, I hear that's why that he couldn't remember things longer than 8 seconds.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, what an awful existence.
8
that
seconds
would
at
really
a
be.
time. So, his dad was an American and of English ancestry, and his mom was Scotch Irish. His dad, get this, was 43 years older than his mother
Whoa, now.
and 75 years old at the time of Albert's birth.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Old man had coin, didn't he?
Old man had a coin left in his coin purse somehow,
Jesus.
meaning he still somehow had working semen in his sack 'em up bags.
I bet she was sold to him as a child. I bet.
I wouldn't really put that past American society at the time for sure.
And she was 43 years. Okay, so she wasn't a child.
No,
but
no. She wasn't 43 years old.
No. He was 75, and she was 43 years younger than he
Yes,
was.
which means
So she was still in her 30s.
she was 32 at the time. Yes,
Yeah.
but
So she could make her own decisions.
But Albert was the youngest of all of his siblings, and he had 3 living siblings. So Walter, Annie, and Edwin were his living siblings. So Albert wished to be known as Albert after one of his dead siblings, and so that he could escape the nickname that had been given to him at an orphanage that he spent a lot of time of his childhood in. This nickname was Ham and Eggs.
How does one get such a nickname?
I'd love to let you know that, but I'm not gonna.
Well, I guess we all stay in the dark then.
So his family had a history of mental illness, which isn't quite the surprise if you've listened to the first episode. His uncle suffered from mania, brother was...
That's a pretty broad
It is.
term.
Hey, you seem a bit crazy. Yeah, that is like, that's literally like...
It's just like saying you're sick.
It's literally saying that you suffer from crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the medical term. Is your actual affliction is that you're crazy. All right, bye. So, his brother was confined to a state mental hospital. His sister was diagnosed with mental affliction. And
Wow.
These
This
are
family's
very
batting
broad
1,000.
terms that this family has. And then 3 other relatives had been diagnosed with different mental illnesses, and his mom had oral and or visual hallucinations.
Like schizophrenia type?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It sounds that way, yeah. But this was, back in the mid 1800s, so it's, it definitely not as well defined as it is today, or even really could have been back then.
Now,
his
does
dad
that
was
like,
Go ahead.
in your opinion, would that go on to I'm wondering, does that show just how rare it is for someone to go on and do the things he did? Because most of the people that we talk about, they don't have like that kind of family history. Like shitty childhoods and being beaten and neglected and blah, blah, blah. But not like a full range of mental illness in his entire immediate family.
Right. This is like the roots of the family tree are just mental illness, and then everything else is sprouting from and off of it. And I get that. And no, I don't think we're gonna see many more people like that or lineages
I've never heard
like
of
that.
anything
Really,
like that.
Not that I exactly not that I can think of. You'll of course hear that maybe somebody's mom or dad was schizophrenic, and then they went off to be fucking crazy as well and things. But this is quite the family history of mental illness.
So with all that mental illness, though, I mean, and him being the only one that went on to do something so horrendous, does that still show like a rarity in that sort of behavior? Being that, okay, you could come from a family of total torture and never grow up to kill people. You could come from a family of straight jungle savages and never grow up to kill people, or mentally ill in every way possible, the broadest of ways, and still never go on to kill people. It seems, when you say things like it seems exceedingly rare now more rare than it was before. Yeah. To me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I agree. It's chaos. What's the world gonna do with you? Who knows? The only way that anybody will ever know is by recounting your story after you're long gone.
Pretty much. This is what we got.
So his dad was a riverboat captain, and by 1870, he was a fertilizer manufacturer.
Was he highfalutin?
He was a captain of a riverboat, and then he made poop.
Awesome. I do that sometimes.
Yeah, who isn't a fertilizer manufacturer these days? So his dad died in 1875 at the 6th Street Station of the Pennsylvania Railroad in Washington, D.C. of a heart attack. The Congressional Cemetery records show that Randall died on October 16th, 1875, and was buried on October 19th. So you got a good 3 days there. So
he's like 106.
So his mom put Fish into St. John's Orphanage in Washington, where he was abused.
You don't say.
But not only is this where his abuse started, this is also where he found out that he kind of really enjoyed physical pain.
Did he though?
Yeah, he actually did. He genuinely did. Of his time there, he would later say, "I was there till I was nearly 9, and that's where I got started wrong. We were unmercifully whipped. I saw boys doing many things they should not have done." So, by 1880, his mom had a government job and got him back from the orphanage. In 1882, at age 12, he began a relationship with a telegraph boy. This telegraph boy introduced Fish to such practices as Eurolangia, Eurolangina. No,
What?
how would we say Urolagnia? Eurolagnia. Yeah, Eurolagnia. It's the drinking of urine.
Oh.
And coprophagia, which is the eating of feces.
Wow, that little telegraph boy was nasty as hell.
Yeah, and he got young 12-year-old Albert Fish into drinking piss and eating shit.
How in the fuck do you bring that up in conversation?
Probably with a wink and a nudge, and then you see where it goes, I guess.
Well, that kid was bold.
Yes. Bold.
At 9 years old? Oh, no, you said 12, huh?
12, yes.
What
Still,
the fucking shit?
yeah, bold. Like the bold flavor of a Camel cigarette. So he
cool.
began visiting public baths where he could watch other boys undress, and he would spend a lot of his free time on these visits.
While he was snacking on his own turds.
Now, I don't remember saying that he ate his own poop.
Well, you said he introduced him to it, and he...
I said that he ate poop. I didn't say that he ate his own poop.
Oh.
Who eats their own poop, you fucking
so they were
sicko?
trading duties?
I don't know. Maybe they were stealing duties
Like
from somewhere else.
Right Twix, left Twix?
Yes. It is exactly like right Twix, left Twix. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is the next sentence in this.
All right. Cool. I must be getting psychic or becoming psychic.
So we'll skip that sentence since we already know what it says.
Yes.
And we'll say that he often throughout his life would write obscene letters to women whose names he acquired from classifieds and matrimonial agencies, which to me is just fun. That's just
This guy
fun.
was a jokester.
He was a jokester. He had a little carrot top in him, you know. And by that I mean he had just the top of a carrot sticking out of his bum, because the rest of the carrot was all the way in there usually.
I was going to say, he had a funny bone in his ass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll get to that, though.
So by 1890, Fish had finally arrived in New York City. And he said, you know, if I can make it there, I can make it raping and killing lots of children.
Man, what ambition.
Mm-hmm. New York, New York. It's up to you.
I mean, I don't ever want to give praise to any of these people, but I think I just realized that I tend to admire their ambition, at least out loud on this show. I think I've said every time, and the last few killers that we've talked about, well, you gotta admire the amount of dedication he put into it. I mean,
I love the fact that you're like, well, you know, well, at least in front of the ears of countless strangers that I will never know. And so, yeah, that would be the best place for me, I guess, to really admire these horrible psychopaths that have done these terrible things.
That's me. Gray area, residing, silver lining.
I don't think that's a gray area, Chris. I think it's pretty. That's neon fucking pink. Neon pink is what that area.
I find silver lining. You know, that's. I mean.
Well, in 1890, when he came to New York, is when he became a prostitute. And it is also, though, when he first started his raping of young boys.
Just when you think you know a guy.
Just when you think you know a guy. Bam! Boy rape. So in 1898, his mom arranged a marriage for him with Anna Mary Hoffman, who
Sounds
was
German.
not... Hold on. Can you stop that, please? Oh, Jesus Christ.
She has something to say.
Too bad. Too bad. My door's locked and I can't get up.
You are now
Hold
enjoying
on.
another exciting episode of...
Melissa, can you open the door so you can let Sabbath in, please? Yes, in here. My mom is jiggling the door handle, saying he wants to get in here, and the other dogs are barking, and I'm recording the show.
Oh, man,
and
it wouldn't be us.
I'm sorry you were sleeping.
It wouldn't be us.
It wouldn't be us without at least one of these happening each time. Oh, man. Tell my mom I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom.
Come on, Sabbath. He doesn't even want
We heart your
Oh,
cheeks.
my God.
Okay.
His mom had arranged a marriage for him with Anna... Yeah. Son of a bitch.
This is German chick. We got it. Moving on.
With Anna Mary Hoffman. She was 9 years younger than he was at the time. They ended up, even though he was a male prostitute that spent most of his time raping young boys, having 6 fucking children. 6.
What in that?
And their names are as followed: Albert, Anna, Gertrude, Eugene, John, and Henry Fish.
Man.
Throughout 1898, he worked as a house painter, which he said made it easier for his side business, if you will, of molesting young children, mostly boys younger than the age of 6. It's just he was at a different place all the time. A lot of times, not being closely monitored by whoever. He was his own boss. He could paint, rape, and run.
Yeah.
He later recounted an incident where a male lover took him to a waxworks museum where Fish was fascinated by a bisection of a penis.
Wait. This guy was like a stamp collector?
Yes.
Like
he was
he
a stamp
loved
collector
him some mail, huh?
that, completely unrelated, went to a waxwork museum
To look at bisected penises.
I mean, I don't think it was like full of just that.
Because that would be an interesting museum.
Yes. It's just bisected penises and stamps.
Well,
Stamps from
there
across
really
the
is something
globe.
for everybody out there, isn't there?
I expect not. And then so after little Mr. Fish sees this waxwork of a bisection of a penis, he becomes absolutely fucking obsessed with sexual mutilation.
Ew.
Yes. In 1903, he was arrested for grand larceny and was subsequently sentenced to incarceration in Sing Sing. And
What
the
is
reason I'm kind
larceny?
of playing larceny is theft, but on a
It's like a business.
like a federal scale. Like it's a federal crime. Is larceny.
So it's not like
yeah.
theft from direct robbery. It's more like theft, like Yeah, like stocks and shit like that, or like fucking.
Look, well, I'll tell you. Grand larceny is typically defined as larceny of a more significant amount in property. In the U.S., it's often defined as an amount valued at $400 or more. In New York, grand larceny refers to amounts of $1,000 or more. It's often classified as a felony with the concomitants possibly of a harsher sentence. In Virginia, the threshold is only $5 if taken from a person, or $500 if not taken from the person. What?
So it's just
the same
theft in general.
The same
as long as it's
penalty
money.
applies for stealing checks as for cash or other valuables. Some states, such as North Carolina, use the term felonious larceny instead of grand larceny.
Well, that's fun.
That's weird. So larceny is just theft, and then grand larceny is basically the felonious level of larceny. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And which one of my favorite things ever is on Futurama, where they had to come up with a new a new crime for describing what Bender had been doing, which was burglar larceny. I just always really loved burgle arson larceny.
That's awesome.
So, at around 1910, oh, like I was saying, the reason I'm playing kind of fast and loose with this stage of his life is it's just the bit of a little bit of the build up to where we are going with Mr. Fish. Okay, like I'm not trying to underplay any of his horribleness. I get, Do you, Chris?
I do.
But really though, do you?
Enough that I'm agreeing with you.
Around 1910, while he was working in Wilmington, which is in Delaware, he met a 19-year-old dude named Thomas Kedden. He took Kedden to where he was staying, and the two began a sadomasochistic relationship, which means, ouch, ooh. Okay, now you. Okay, ouch, ooh. Okay, now you. Ouch, ooh.
All the while being married with 6 kids.
Wow. And somehow still finding the time to fucking paint houses.
Hell of an efficient use of time. God damn.
Well, when you love what you do.
See, there are no excuses for laziness, people. Other than, I just didn't want to do anything. I mean, that's the
right.
only excuse.
Yeah, if you can't, like if you're a house painter, and you go out and you paint a house, and then you get home at night, and your wife's like, oh, I could really use a foot rub, and you're like, I've been painting houses all day. Just remember that this guy went out and painted houses all day while he was molesting children while doing it, and then still had the energy when he got home to have a sadomasochistic relationship with a 19-year-old man.
Sounds exhausting.
You could just be doing so much more with your life is what I'm saying.
Indeed.
So, it's not completely clear whether or not Fish forced Thomas into this relationship and doing these things. But in Fish's later confessions, he does imply that Kedden was intellectually disabled. Yeah.
Wow.
So, after about 10 days of this relationship, Fish took Kedden to an old farmhouse where he began to torture him. The torture took place over 2 weeks.
Whoa.
And Fish eventually tied him up and cut off half of his penis.
Holy shit.
Fish says, I shall never forget his scream or the look that he gave me. Fish had later recalled he originally intended to kill him and cut up his body and take it home, but he was afraid that the hot weather would draw attention to him. So instead of doing that, he poured peroxide over the wound. He wrapped it in a Vaseline-covered handkerchief. He left a $10 bill, and kissed him goodbye and left.
Wow.
And
holy shit.
of this he said, "I took the first train I could to get back home. Never heard of what become of him, or tried to find out."
Huh.
So,
Fucking A.
let that be a lesson, people into sadomasochism. Maybe, just one day, you'll be taken to a farm and half of your penis cut off, covered in peroxide, and a Vaseline-covered handkerchief, and you'll be left with a $10 bill and a kiss.
I really hope that never happens. I mean, $10 isn't even enough for the Uber to the hospital anymore. So...
And even if it were, it's not like you can give the Uber driver a 10.
Exactly. See?
Ugh.
I mean, you can hand him that piece of your dick that's now severed, but I don't think he'll take that as
But then you're going to
either.
need that so he can put it back.
Exactly.
Anyway. So in January of 1917, Fish's wife left him for John Straub,
Huh?
a handyman who boarded with the Fish family. Yeah, so this guy
that
used to stay with
sneaky
them.
bitch.
I know, right, Straub? You sneaky bitch.
Fuck.
So Fish then had to raise his children as a single parent.
So brave.
Such a brave man. He's been through so much.
I mean, and in that
Like
that time period too, that was excuse me, that was some pioneering shit right there.
Oh yeah, a single father of 6 fucking
Man,
kids.
Just
Absolutely.
didn't happen.
And I mean, just think about it, dude. Like, not only did his wife just leave him for a handyman friend who boarded with them and everything, and you know he's now taking care of these 6 kids all on his own, but he also lost $10 because he cut that fucking dude's half his penis
Fuck.
off. And I mean, like, you know, now he's like, man, I could really use that $10 to feed my kids. I
Gonna
mean,
have to go paint some more
I
houses.
can't believe what I've been going through. You just, times are hard, is what I'm saying.
Can I?
Only, well, really, only about half as hard as they used to be. Well.
It's never
It's
too
terrible.
soon on our show, but man,
Nope.
that was borderline. No,
Often it's much too late, but not that time. So when his wife left him, she took almost everything that they owned. So this is when Fish starts to really have, you know, he starts coming into his own as far as his own mental breakdown. He starts having auditory hallucinations. He once wrapped himself up in a carpet, saying that he was following the instructions of John the Apostle.
see, now this all sounds like schizophrenia for real.
Well, it might sound like schizophrenia for real because it's probably schizophrenia for real.
So
know?
many things that so many weird like little triggers in the brain that could just really make a person a whole different kind of human. That
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that as something as like severe schizophrenia, it will effectively erase the person that you were and put in a strange approximation
right?
of what you
It's
are
like you're
now.
a Mad Lib now.
Yeah, it's like you're the foundation of you
Excuse me.
is there, but now instead of being built out of like a house framing boards and things like that, it's old gum and fucking and lollipop sticks and spit and like tied together maybe with some like hair and
Ugh.
spit.
Yeah,
And-
that's an apt description, I believe.
So it still looks like you, but it's fundamentally not.
It's scary.
Um,
Not.
So it's also about this time that he began to indulge in self-harm. He would embed needles into his groin and his abdomen. One of my favorite pictures of all of true crime is the X-ray that they took after his arrest, which reveals that he had at least 29 needles lodged in his pelvic
Got
region.
to post that too.
Which I will. Which he put there so that he would feel this intense pain every time he sat down. Now these needles were in him for quite some time. Like he didn't stick them inside himself and take them out or prick himself with them and go, "Whoo, what a rush." No, they were embedded deep
you used
inside.
That word pretty specifically for a reason. Fuck.
Ouch. He would also hit himself repeatedly with a nail-studded paddle, and he would insert wool that is doused with lighter fluid into his butthole and light it
What
up.
in the fuck does that? How? And but God damn it!
So, while it's he was never actually thought to have physically abused or attacked in any way his children, he did encourage them and their friends to paddle his butt with the same nail-studded paddle he used to abuse himself, developing an obsession with cannibalism, and often preparing himself dinner that was just raw meat, and sometimes even serving that to his kids, which is fucked,
This is like everything about this guy is to the weirdest extreme possible.
Yeah, and exactly. It's
Well,
other people are weird too. Other people
but
have done weird
he parades
shit.
it around in
But
front of people as if it's normal.
Yeah. Oh no, he wears it around his neck like he's fucking Flavor Flav and it's a clock. Yeah. Not only does he want people to know that he knows what time it is,
It's time to
but
get
that
ill.
he's got the baddest ass fucking way of knowing what fucking time it is. And that's kind of the scariest fucking thing about him. So around 1919, he stabs an intellectually disabled boy in Georgetown, which means he goddamn stabbed a special needs child.
He's got a thing for them.
Yeah, because he would choose people who were either mentally handicapped or, and this is his logic. Nowhere does the logic or views of Albert Fish fucking in any way represent the views held by hear no speak no, hear no see no speak no. This is how bad this next sentence is. Yeah, we don't think these things. I'm reading what he thought. So he would choose people who were either mentally handicapped or African American as his victims. Explaining that these people just wouldn't be missed.
Wow.
He would also claim to occasionally pay boys to find him other children.
Man.
So he would torture, mutilate, and murder young kids with his implements of hell, which were a meat cleaver, a butcher's knife, and a small handsaw, which that's what we were talking about earlier, Chris, when I couldn't remember what he called his little collection of goodies, which just his
God
implements
damn it.
of hell.
He's got he's got
So-
like, and being that it was before all of our modern well-known killers is why you can say that he basically is one of the milestones. I mean, there's a lot of famous killers for what they've done, but this guy's on a whole nother planet from the rest of them, and he does things that some of them have also done. That, I mean, if you didn't know his story, you could say, okay, well, he used kids to get other kids. Well, that's a Dean Coral sort of thing, or, you know, this or that. But he did it first.
Well, the thing about Albert Fish, I think, that really separates him from every other horrible fucking psychopathic killer out there is that even, like, even Chikatilo, who had a crazy kill count, or Moses Sithole, who fucking killed 100 in a year, they were still just sicko murderers. Albert Fish is a horror movie monster. That's the big difference between him and any other psychopath killer, is that Albert Fish is absolutely 100% an actual monster. He is, it's like the shit that he fucking did is a horror writer sitting down and saying to themselves, what's the fucking worst thing that I could come up with for my monster to do? How can I get people afraid of him as soon as possible? That is Albert Fish, but Albert Fish was a man that actually lived on the earth that we are sitting in and talking on and listening to. Yeah. Indeed, especially for
many times.
his time, you know?
This guy's DNA is out there.
6 fucking kids, dude. That shit's crazy. But on July 11th, 1924, Fish had found 8-year-old Beatrice Keel playing alone on her parents' Staten Island farm. He offered her money to come and help him look for rhubarb, you know, because what do kids like more than playing or anything else ever is
Rhubarb's purple. It's
is
not hard to
rhubarb.
find.
That
It's just a ploy.
that is how you get kids to behave.
Yeah.
That is how you get them excited for something. It's not, hey, we're going to Disneyland and then you bring them to the dentist. No, it's, hey, we're going to fucking go look for some rhubarb. And then you choke them to death and do terrible things to their bodies.
Thought it was going to be fun.
She was about to leave the farm. When her mom chased Fish away, hopefully with a broom.
Shovel.
Saying, "You get out of here! No, you get out of here! I don't want you around here!" And just swinging that broom. Just
So did he just
right
walk
at his
up
big
to this little
stupid
girl
walrus
in her
mustache?
yard or something, playing in her yard, and try to fucking walk away with her? Good God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Is Fish was so confident in the fact that whatever he was doing, like, he was just gonna do it because there was nothing wrong with it to him. So
Was it confidence, though, or was it, like... Because, you know, when you think of confidence with these killers, it's usually, like, the brazen fucking killer that has that confidence that there's no way I could be caught. But to me, it doesn't sound like he's thinking about being caught. So it wouldn't be confidence. It would just be...
everyday life.
Yeah. Like, I have no concept of consequence.
No, it's. I mean, we've used examples like this before or whatever, but it would be like me going down to the store for a quart of milk or a gallon of milk, whatever. Fucking, I'm just going to go down to the store and buy some milk. Well, Fish is like, well, I'm just going to go and tell this girl I need help looking for rhubarb.
Right. Fucking
And
wow.
I think that is the same mentality behind each, which is crazy because usually when I go to buy milk, I don't strangle it to death and rape it.
Indeed.
Usually.
Well.
That's not to say it doesn't happen.
Oh, that
So,
milk, though. Sometimes.
Here's the best part is Fish braving another attack by Broom. He left, but he later came back to their barn where he tried to sleep, but he was then discovered by Hans Kiel, who was Beatrice's father, and forced to leave. So he came back, and if not found, Beatrice was probably going to be in some fucking trouble.
Rather lenient parents.
Well, I mean, as far as they know, it's just some transient fucking trying to, get a roof over his head for the night kind of deal,
It was different times back then.
Indeed. Indeed. It was during the year of 1924 that the now 54-year-old Fish was really in the full swing of his psychosis, and he felt that God was commanding him to torture and sexually mutilate children.
Wow.
Yeah. So, shortly before his abduction of Grace Budd, who we talked about at length last episode, he attempted to test his implements of hell on a kid that he had been molesting named Cyril Quinn. Quinn and his friend were playing box ball, which... Okay, I gotta see what box ball is. Hold on. It's gotta be like basketball,
That's actually
right?
a pretty fun
Oh,
name.
no, it's Foursquare.
Oh.
Box ball
Okay.
is Foursquare. It's a ball game played among 4 players on a square court divided into quadrants. It's a popular game at elementary schools with little required equipment, almost no setup, and short rounds of play that can be ended at any time. I have never played it.
I don't remember
care
how, but I've sat in on a game. And I will eventually tell
It's
you guys
all
what pot cheese is, though, by the way.
As long as I'm not listening on the show, that's fine with me. Because God fucking help you, Chris.
Okay.
God help you. They were playing box ball on a sidewalk when Fish asked them if they'd eaten lunch. When they said that they hadn't, he invited them to his apartment for sandwiches. So while the 2 boys were wrestling on Fish's bed, because of course boys will be boys, I guess, they dislodged his mattress, and underneath was a knife, a small handsaw, and a meat cleaver.
Shit.
They got scared and they ran out of the apartment. So good for
Horseplay
them.
saved the day. Wow.
When does horseplay not save the day? I can't begin to name the times where I was horseplaying and or playing with a horse when a plot to murder me was uncovered by knocking over a vase or by, hacking into a computer accidentally and finding just the worst porn. Oh, God.
70s vintage.
So, Fish actually remarried. He remarried February 6th, 1930.
Fucking why?
I don't fucking know. I guess to have an air of normalcy, maybe,
You know what, though? I think any reason we could come up with is putting actual humanistic thought processes to it, and I really don't... at this point, I really don't believe that anything he does is by, normal human reasons.
No, absolutely.
It's for normal human reasons. I think this was probably just one of those things where, what was left of his normal human brain was telling him that this is what he should do.
Because it would make him look more normal human.
Well, see, no, see, that would be a normal criminal way of thinking. Maybe that's what. Maybe, I mean, that it's not unreasonable to think, but at the same time, someone perhaps who is really, really far gone on their schizophrenia might just have a few moments of normalcy where they remember that, oh, I used to be in love, and oh, I used to have a wife, and oh, that was great, and oh, that's what normal people do, versus let me get a wife so that I look normal, so that nobody's watching me go do this fucking crazy shit like any other criminal would.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, kind
of like an Alzheimer's patient that comes back and remembers you for a few minutes.
And see, I want to say, I don't even. It's almost like he didn't even know he was doing it. It's just his body on automatic doing it. But I mean, you don't just get married. You have to meet a person, and then you have to, in some fashion, woo this person, and then in some fashion, have them agree to marry you. You know what I mean? So like, there had to have been some planning in this stage.
And his crumpled blue suit.
Yes, with pot cheese just crumbled all over him. So he remarried on February 6, 1930, which is the day after my birthday, only 50 years beforehand, in Waterloo, New York.
Gross.
Which we all know is where Napoleon lost the French-Canadian chess tournament.
I thought that was Waterloo, Illinois.
No, it was Waterloo, Nebraska.
Oh.
Like I just fucking said.
Well, fuck the whole state of Nebraska.
I agree. Nebraska, you know what you did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got some fun stories coming up eventually about some Nebraska shit happening.
So he remarried to Estella Wilcox, but he divorced after only 1 week.
Waste of his time.
Mm-hmm. His time. That's right, Chris. His time. He was arrested in May of 1930 for sending an obscene letter to a woman who answered an advertisement for a maid. Mm-hmm. And then, following that arrest,
one of his kids to fill it out and drop it off for him.
Probably. Following that arrest, and one again in 1931, he was sent to the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital for observation.
So one again? You mean like the same type of arrest again? He didn't...
You know what? Probably.
Oh, jeez. I mean, come on, man. There's only one way they could have found you. It's a fucking letter. Don't do that again.
Stop writing letters, you dumb bastard. God damn it.
Oh, man. Forensics.
So, then, after that, after he gets out of Bellevue, on May 25th, 1928, Fish sees a classified in the Sunday edition of the New York World that read, "Young man, 18, wishes position in country, Edward Budd, 406 West 15th Street." And I believe we know a little bit
that word position
of what happened here. I believe it had something to do with pot cheese and strawberries.
Yeah.
Ouch, my pinkies. God damn it.
That is a very odd thing for someone to yell randomly.
Well, you know, that's pot cheese and strawberries for you.
But knowing who we're talking about, the statement "young man wishes position" or seeks position is just extra awful.
Oh yeah, no. If that classified were in any paper today, they'd be like, "This dude wants me to fuck him."
Yeah. Craigslist knows all about it.
I got positions for that young man seeking positions, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Wow.
You better
Farmington.
call Tyrone. So, after Mr. Fish, who was not there as a Mr. Fish, left with Grace but never returned, the police actually arrested a 66-year-old superintendent, Charles Edward Pope, on September 5th, 1930, as a suspect, because he had been accused by his estranged wife, which is fucked up.
Yes.
Like, look, you and I may not get along, and maybe I left you for your sister, and not even your younger, hotter sister, but your older, uglier sister. She and I just get along really well, okay? At some point, you're going to have to deal with it and move on, and probably not accuse me of the kidnapping and murder of a 10-year-old girl. Thank you.
For reals. For reals.
So he spent 108 days in jail.
Fucking A.
Yeah, between his arrest and his trial on December 22nd of 1930.
As a child molesting murderer.
Yes, where he was found not fucking guilty and let go, of course.
But after 108 days in jail as a child molesting murderer, what?
Well, I guess technically at that point they didn't know that Grace was dead.
But that's like the worst thing you could be.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
In jail, or in anywhere.
Absolutely. Yes, it's bad. It's super bad.
Wow.
Oh.
That poor bastard.
So, we will be getting into his the manhunt for Fish and his arrest. But first, there are some other crimes of some note that happened in between these things.
So much fun.
First of all, we're going to talk about Francis McDonald. During the evening of July 14th, 1924, 9-year-old Francis McDonald was reported missing by his parents. He failed to return home after playing catch with his friends in Port Richmond, which is a neighborhood of Staten Island. A search for him was organized, and his body was found hanging by a tree in a wooded area by his house.
Damn.
This is the last story we talked about last week, where his mother had seen Albert Fish with the opening and closing, and open and shut, and open and shut of the hands.
This was her kid.
You know, he had been sexually assaulted and strangled with his own suspenders. And he also had suffered extensive lacerations to his legs and abdomen, and his left hamstring had almost entirely been stripped of its flesh.
Holy shit.
Fish refused to claim responsibility for this, although later he ended up stating that he had intended to castrate him, but fled when he had heard some people approaching. McDonald's friends told the cops that he was taken by an old man with a gray mustache. A neighbor also told the police he observed the boy with a similar-looking man walking into a grassy path nearby the woods. Francis's mom, Anna, said she saw the same man earlier that day. He came shuffling down the street, mumbling to himself and making queer motions with his hands. I saw his thick gray hair and his drooping gray mustache. Everything about him seemed faded and gray. And that's when he picked up the moniker the Gray Man, which is fucked. So, several eyewitnesses, among them Staten Island farmer Hans Keel, had identified Albert Fish as the odd stranger seen around Port Richmond on the day of Francis McDonald's disappearance. Richmond County District Attorney Thomas J. Walsh had announced his intention to seek an indictment against Fish for the boy's murder. At first, Fish had denied the charges. It was only in March of 1935, after the conclusion of his trial for the Budd murder and his confessions to the killing of Billy Gaffney, who we also spoke about last time, who I will go into a little bit more detail in a second, that Fish finally confirmed to the investigators that he also had raped and murdered Francis. When the McDonald confession was finally made public, the New York Daily Mirror wrote that the disclosure solidified Fish's reputation as the most vicious child slayer in criminal history. So more on Billy Gaffney. He was the 3-year-old. On February 11th of 27, 3-year-old Billy Beaton and his 12-year-old brother were playing in the apartment hallway in Brooklyn with the 4-year-old Billy Gaffney. So the 12-year-old had left for his apartment to... He was babysitting the younger sister of the other boy. And he left to go check on the little sister. When he came back, both boys were gone.
Damn.
Billy Beaton was later found on the roof. And when asked what happened to Gaffney, Beaton had just said the boogeyman took him. Gaffney's body was never recovered. And initially, serial killer Peter Kudzinowski? Kudzinowski.
That's a hell of a name.
Kudzinowski. That's it. Kudzinowski. Yay! Peter Kudzinowski was a suspect in the murder. Then Joseph Meehan, a motorman on a Brooklyn trolley, saw a picture of Fish in a newspaper and identified him as the old man that he saw on February 11th. The old man had been trying to quiet a little boy sitting with him on the trolley. The boy wasn't wearing a jacket. He was crying for his mother and was dragged by the man on and off the trolley. Beaton's description of the boogeyman matched Fish. The police matched the description of the child to Billy. Detectives of the Manhattan Missing Persons Bureau were able to establish that Fish was employed as a house painter by a Brooklyn real estate company during February of 1927, and that on the day of Gaffney's disappearance, he was working at a location a few miles away from where he was abducted. Well, Fish claimed the following in a letter to his attorney. I brought him to the Riker Avenue dumps. There's a house that stands alone not far from where I took him. I took the G-boy there, stripped him naked and tied his hands and feet and gagged him with a piece of dirty rag I picked up out of the dump. Then I burned his clothes, threw his shoes in the dump. Then I walked back and took the trolley to 59th Street at 2 a.m. and walked home from there. Next day, about 2 p.m., I took tools, a good heavy cat-o'-nine tails, homemade, short handle, cut one of my belts in half, slit these halves into 6 strips about 8 inches long. I whipped his bare behind till the blood ran from his legs. I cut off his ears, nose, slit his mouth from ear to ear, gouged out his eyes. He was dead then. I stuck the knife in his belly and held my mouth to his body and drank his blood. I picked up 4 old potato sacks and gathered a pile of stones. I cut him up. I had a grip with me. I put his nose, ears, and a few slices of his belly in the grip. Then I cut him through the middle of his body, just below his belly button, then through his legs about 2 inches below his behind. I put this in my grip with a lot of paper. I cut off the head, feet, arms, hands, and the legs below the knee. This I put in sacks weighed with stones, tied the ends, and threw them into the pools of slimy water you'll see along the road going to North Beach. Water is 3 to 4 foot deep. They sank at once. I came home with my meat. I had the front of his body I liked best. His monkey and peewees and nice little fat behind to roast in the oven and eat. I made a stew out of his ears, nose, pieces of his face, and belly. I put onions, carrots, turnips, celery salt, and pepper. It was good. Then I split the cheeks of his behind open, cut off his monkey and peewees, and washed them first. I put strips of bacon on each cheek of his behind and put it in the oven. Then I picked 4 onions, and when meat had roasted about a fourth of an hour, I poured about a pint of water over it for gravy and put it in the onions. At frequent intervals, I basted his behind with a wooden spoon so the meat would be nice and juicy.
In about 2 hours, it was nice and brown, cooked through. I never ate any roast turkey that tasted half as good as this sweet, fat little behind. I ate every bit of the meat in about 4 days. His little monkey was as sweet as a nut, but his peewees I could not chew. I threw them in the toilet. So, I hope that everyone out there will catch Food Network's hottest new TV show, Cooking in the Kitchen with Fish, where he teaches you how to baste behind meat that has been accentuated with strips of bacon, and how the monkey and peewees are to be extracted and properly prepared. Also,
I think if he was French, he would have known how to cook those peewees to perfection.
Yeah, probably. Also, what the fuck, man? You're like 60-something. What are you calling a penis and testicles monkey and peewees for?
There's so much about this guy that just...
fuck is wrong with you, man?
Doesn't make sense, but... Wow, what a fucking statement. What a story. What a fucking... Again, every time I hear this man's story, I am as equally appalled as I was the last time.
It's oh, man. It really is. It just really is. You know what I mean?
All of that, yes. All of it. That part. Fucking. God damn.
So, we have about 15 minutes left. We are going to, well, I am going to start telling you people about the investigation that, thank God, will finally lead to the capture of this fucking monster.
Wait.
Yes.
What do you mean, you people?
I mean, all of the ethnic minorities.
Okay, sweet.
Okay.
Because they want to know.
Yeah. No, Whitey is not involved.
Okay. Continue.
And especially not the fucking French Canadian.
This is especially not a certain type of white.
So,
Scandinavians.
the letter from hell was delivered in an envelope that had a small hexagon emblem with the letters NYPCBA on them. Please, Chris, tell me off the top of your head what NYPCBA stands for.
No young parts.
C.
CBA. No young parts cooked before
Ass.
Yeah, okay. That'll work.
Because that is the sweetest, but it takes the longest. I've been watching Food Network. No, it actually means New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association.
Ooh, that's very specific.
Not only is it very specific, it is very hoity-toity.
Yeah, highfalutin.
A janitor at the company had told the police that he'd taken some of the stationery home, but he had left it at his rooming house at 200 East 52nd Street when he moved out. The landlady of the rooming house said that a man had checked into that room a few days earlier, and that man happened to go by the name of Albert Fish. So he happened to leave just a few days before the cops got there. But she said that Fish's son would send him money once a month, and he asked her to hold his next check for him. So the chief investigator for the case, William F. King, who was an absolute fucking badass. And on the next episode, I'm going to go into more detail about King and why he is such an amazing
He was
badass.
certainly a pioneer of police techniques.
Oh, absolutely. But he waited outside of this room until Fish came back. Well, Fish agreed to go to headquarters for questioning. And then he pulled out a razor blade. Well, King disarmed Fish and took him into custody. Fish made no attempt to deny the murder of Grace Budd. He said that he meant to go to the house to kill Edward Budd, Grace's brother. But then Fish said it never had even entered his head to rape the girl, but later claimed to his attorney while kneeling on Grace's chest and strangling her, he did have 2 involuntary ejaculations. This information was used at trial to make the claim that the kidnapping was sexually motivated, thus avoiding any mention of cannibalism.
Wow. The lesser of 2 evils, I guess.
So that was a very quick summation of his actual arrest day and what happened when the awesome inspector got there. I just wanted all of you out there to know that yes, Albert Fish was caught
Yeah.
for his crimes, and yes, Albert Fish does stand trial.
Yeah. That's going to be
But
fun.
we will find out what exactly happens next week. And I do want to go more into the manhunt that took place for Fish. Because it's something that is... The police work that was done is straight out of fucking Law and Order. Like, it is not something that you expect to have happened in the early 1930s. It's just not.
No, it set precedences for sure.
This man, the chief investigator, he didn't retire when he was supposed to, purely so that he could find the kidnapper and murderer of Grace Budd. He had his own fucking obsession, and that obsession was solving this case. And he was going to do it at any cost. But usually when you say something like that about a cop trying to solve a case at any cost, it's a loose cannon cop that is going to find the junkie under the bridge, and he's going to slap him around a bit to find out the information he needs. Like, no. This guy not only was going to solve this case at any cost, he was going to do it the right way. He was going to do it by the book the entire way. He was going to do it by stick-to-itiveness and fucking flawless goddamn police work. You know what I mean? He wasn't driving a fucking souped-up Model T down the street and driving through fruit stand carts and shit like that, chasing Albert Fish, jumping fences and from rooftop to rooftop. Now, this guy was following handwriting analyses and countless tips called in. Most, if not all, that were completely fruitless.
Oh, he was crazy diligent.
He
And that too is admirable.
Yeah, he's very much an actual hero of mine. He did what he knew was right for, in my mind, completely the right reasons.
Right.
And I admire the fuck out of that. But, Chris, I know that we didn't go into as much detail into his depravity as we could have. I mean, there will be more detail during the trial phase of the things that he would do, especially when talking about when he would babysit children and the games, quote unquote, that they would play with his children and their friends, like the whole paddle me with the paddle of nails until I start bleeding,
Man.
and the game. Oh, this is my favorite game right here. It's, hey, which one of you can fit the most sewing needles under my fingernails?
Jesus fucking Christ. I can only imagine how these kids were, like, amongst other kids, like, in school and shit. Like, they had to have been just the least excitable children ever. Like, nothing surprised these kids.
Oh, and the thing is the kids, his kids, knew that this shit was fucked up.
They had to.
Like when the police finally caught Albert Fish, his oldest, who was junior, said, "What the fuck took you so long?" to the cops.
Dude.
They're like, "I knew that this was going to happen. When he lived with me a few years ago, he would wake up in cold sweat screaming her name. What took you guys so long?"
I mean, there are certain things you just don't have to teach. You know, kids, like, people just know certain things are wrong. It's just like, you know, whether you believe it or not. Same thing with animals. People don't give animals enough credit for their intelligence. Whether you believe it or not, your cat or dog does know you're playing with your dick. They totally do.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't give a shit.
Yeah. And neither
Human
should
kids
is the thing.
totally know you're fucked up. But you are their parent. So they kind of love you. You know?
Well, it might not even be the "I kind of love you" thing. In this case, it was almost certainly more of a, well, if I tell, I'll get in trouble. I mean, it's the same thing that any molester will tell a child. It's that, you know, if you fucking tell anybody this, you're going to be in so much trouble.
Right.
And that's the scary part, is that
So twisted.
it's apparently very easy to manipulate a child by saying, "I'll tell on you."
That's so twisted.
This whole thing's fucking twisted, Chris. The whole goddamn thing is just batshit nutty poop crap scat.
In the kiddie pool.
Diddle biddly la ba 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 bow shiddle ba bow.
Well said.
Mm-hmm. So, what did you learn so far in the epic saga of Ali Fishtimer?
So much. I learned so much. Again.
Shit's fucked up.
Yeah. it's like every time I hear it, it's, even though I know the story, it's something new. Actually, I did learn something new this time. I did not know that he was a male prostitute for a little while. I don't know how that escaped me.
Neither did I. And it had to have been decently early in his life, because that's where he really got into sadomasochism,
right,
and things of that nature, which I mean, he's had these terrible mental afflictions that run in his family, fucking with everyone in his family, and it's almost like, I mean, the cards are stacked against you at that point, are they not?
I would think so. Heavily.
I mean, because mental illness does run in families, correct?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about it, but it is, and to have such a history. I mean, because Albert Fish believed he was fucking Jesus. He believed he was the Son of God, and that not only that God would protect him, but as I said in the last episode, that if God thought he was doing wrong, that God would step in and stop him, as he stopped Abraham from killing his son. It's the delusional man that is also packaged along with the extreme sexual deviant that makes him so one-off and unique and terrifying.
But I mean, all of that. I mean, most of this shit is like somewhat recognizable that it's a thing that people might do, but then there's some things that are just so extreme. It's not like Chikatilo disemboweling a kid extreme, out of just fucking rage and shit. It's not like that. It's just like it's a certain type of quirk in the brain that shuts off or turns bad pain into good pain. And I'm not saying that it's all a bad thing, for sadism or masochism, or it doesn't all have to be a bad thing, but
no, if it's done between consenting adults and it's done in a way that is agreed upon and there are ground rules, but forcing any sadomasochistic practice onto another is always you're gonna have a bad time.
I think that's the definition of torture, but it's just
right.
That I mean, and a lot of killers have tortured, and a lot of killers were also into a little bit of pain themselves, and a lot of killers were this and that, but wrapping it all in together and then adding what I can only assume was varying degrees of schizophrenia, adding to it this whole God complex thing, adding to it, which I'm sure was part of his schizophrenia, but and then adding to it all this other shit. It just, how the fuck is all of this packed into one person? And the levels, just the levels of extremity, it blows my fucking mind that this was one person.
Well, in next week's episode, we will be getting much deeper into his psyche and his actual his mental disabilities and his practice as far as what he thought he had to do as opposed to what he enjoyed doing. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
So
these are two different things, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna get much further into that because I wanted to save that more for the trial episode, because that's when we'll have actual. I mean, they're psychiatrists of the day, but from what I've read, they seem just really well, not prepared, or they seem like they know what the fuck they're talking about. Even if they were on the stand today, they see this thing and they see it clear as day. There's no wavering thought of maybes with Albert Fish. There are lots of definitives. There's not a whole lot unknown about Albert Fish, because once he was caught, he was an open book because he had no reason to hide. Right. Because if what he was doing was bad, God would have stopped him. So,
it's easy to forget that was actually a factor in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's only mentioned a couple of times, and it's pretty short in passing. It's not like there's a whole lot to say on it other than this is what he really thought.
Right. And I mean, of course, he got sexual gratification out of doing these things. He got immense sexual gratification out of doing these things to others and having them done to himself. Otherwise, indeed, it's a good time. Because otherwise, he wouldn't have had 29-ish fucking needles jammed into his groin.
Oh my god.
I think what it can all be boiled down to, and how I'll end the show this week, is that he couldn't only dish it out. He could fucking take it.
The man was quite the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And in that x-ray picture too, as you guys will see, some of those needles that are way up in there were clearly in there for long enough for them to start degrading inside his body.
When I say they were in there for a long time, I'm saying the upwards of 20 years.
Fuck.
He had some of these needles inside of him. But we'll get to all of that next week. As of now, you've just listened to another prickly fucking episode of See No, Hear No, Speak No.
The UFOs, the conspiracies, the good old time, and Midas.
Count down. 3, 2, 1. Thanks, kids. Have a good night, and don't stick noodles in your penis.
Until next time.
Through the thick and thin.